Dawn broke over the Wyoming plains like a slow-lifting curtain, revealing a world dusted in gold. The wind carried the quiet rattle of dry grass, a sound that always made Rancher Elias' heart pause. But this morning, something else pulled his attention. A figure walking the long dirt road to his gate. Shoulders squared, steps steady. A woman alone. The camera would glide behind her, catching the pale sunrise turning her hair into a warm halo. Her dress was worn at the seams, simple and practical, the kind frontier women stitch twice to make last. Her hands were clasped tight as if holding herself together. Her name, she said, was Mara Lorne. Her voice didn't tremble, but her eyes revealed a truth she couldn't hide. She had nowhere left to go. She asked for work. Any work. Cleaning stalls. Cooking meals. Carrying water. Anything that meant she didn't have to sleep another night behind the abandoned freight shed by the river. Elias studied her in the slanted morning light. He was a quiet man, too quiet, if you asked the town. Loss had carved long shadows behind his ribs, and he'd learned to live with them. But something in Mara's posture, that stubborn tilt of her chin, reminded him of a promise he once made to himself long before the world grew heavy. Help people who asked with honest eyes. A distant breeze lifted the dust between them, almost like the land itself was urging him to answer. But even as he listened to her steady, practiced words, something didn't add up. Women who'd been running didn't walk with that kind of resolve unless they were hiding something deeper, something painful, something that would matter later. And Elias felt it, an instinct stirring. This woman's arrival wasn't a coincidence. It was the opening move in a story neither of them could see yet. Elias didn't answer her right away. He turned toward the barn, motioning for her to follow. The light shifted as they stepped inside, sunbeams slicing through the wooden slats, catching dust in midair like drifting sparks. The silence tightened between them, not hostile, just heavy with unspoken truths. Mara kept her eyes lowered at first, studying the hay-scattered floor. But every few steps she glanced around, as if mapping the place, learning its details. People who planned to stay did that. People who feared being chased did it even more. When Elias finally spoke, his voice carried that gravelly steadiness men earned from years of weathered work. "You know ranch work isn't gentle," he said. "It asks more than it gives." She met his eyes. "So does life." That answer caught him off guard. Most folks beg or promise or rambled. But she delivered that line without drama, just plain truth. And in that truth, he heard exhaustion, pride, and a quiet refusal to break. He handed her a feed sack. "Start with this," he said. "See how you manage." Mara didn't flinch. She lifted the sack, heavier than it looked, and carried it toward the stalls with a steady, deliberate pace. No sighs, no complaints, just focus. And for the first time in a long while, Elias felt something soften inside him, something he thought the years had burned out. Not affection, not yet, but respect, the kind that grows slow and deep, like roots in hard soil. Still, questions pressed at the edges of his mind. Why had she come alone? Why this ranch? Why now? And why did her gaze linger on the far hills every time the wind shifted? When she stepped back into the sunlight, the brightness hit her face in a way that revealed it clearly. She'd been crying long before she reached his gate, and she was fighting hard to keep those tears buried. A curiosity trigger flickered to life. What kind of past forces a woman to walk miles before sunrise just to ask a stranger for work? Elias didn't know the answer yet, but he sensed something bigger than both of them was already unfolding, quiet as dawn, unstoppable as time. If you're still here, make sure to like and subscribe. It keeps stories like this reaching people who still believe in second chances. The days stretched long across the plains. Heat shimmered in low waves, and the sky carried that endless western blue that made problems feel smaller, unless you were living one you couldn't outrun. Mara worked quietly, steadily, almost too steadily. People trying to blend in always did. Elias watched her from the porch as he mended a bridle. Not spying, just studying. The way she paused sometimes, as if listening for something distant. The way she kept her back straight even when her strength faltered. The way she avoided questions with polite nods. By late afternoon, he brought her a tin cup of well water. "You holding up?" he asked. Her fingers trembled when she reached for it, but her smile didn't. "I've had harder days." The camera would tighten on Elias then, his brow creasing, his jaw shifting. That answer wasn't casual. It was a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. As Mara leaned against the fence, the wind lifted her hair and revealed a faint bruise just below her jawline. Not fresh, but recent enough to matter. She turned her head quickly, but it was too late. Elias had seen it. He didn't ask. Not yet. Questions could scare off a skittish person faster than danger could. Instead, he pointed at the horizon where the grazing fields rolled out like a green sea. "Storm coming," he said. "You can stay in the bunkhouse tonight. Safer than the shed by the river." Her breath hitched, just a thin, almost invisible sound. But he caught it, relief mixed with fear. "Thank you," she whispered. Her gratitude felt too heavy for such a simple offer. Curiosity crept deeper now, sharper, more insistent. What storm had she already survived before she ever reached his ranch? As the sun dipped low, the light turned coppery, washing the land in a glow that made even broken things look whole. Elias felt something shift, subtle but undeniable, a responsibility he hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. He didn't know it yet, but bringing her into that bunkhouse was a moment their fates intertwined. And history, quiet, unseen, slow-moving, had just changed its course. Night settled over the ranch with a slow, deliberate calm. Lantern light flickered across the yard, casting long, trembling shadows that made everything feel heavier, quieter, more honest. Mara stood at the doorway of the bunkhouse, hands wrapped around the blanket Elias had given her. A simple gesture, but she held it like something fragile, something she wasn't used to receiving. Inside, the room smelled of cedar and old leather. One narrow bed, a small stove, and a single window facing the open plains. Nothing special, yet to Mara it was shelter, safety, and a pause from the life she'd been running from. Elias lingered at the doorway, hat in hand. "If you need anything," he said, "I'm in the house." She nodded, though her eyes kept darting to the dark ridge beyond the ranch. Will anyone come looking for me?" He studied her face, really studied it this time. Fair, worn thin, carefully hidden until the stillness of night made it impossible to disguise. "Only if you tell them where you are," he said. A breath escaped her. Not quite relief, not quite trust. Something halfway between. As the wind pressed against the bunkhouse walls, Elias leaned one shoulder against the frame. "You should know. I don't take in strangers. Haven't in years." She looked up sharply. "Then why me?" The lantern caught the quiet lines of his face. The years etched there, the loneliness he'd buried under work and routine. "Because you walked up the road like someone with no lies left," he said. "I can respect that." Her eyes softened, first hint of warmth since sunrise. But then something shifted. She turned toward the window, listening. Really listening. A distant horse call? A cart? Or just her mind rehearsing the past? It lasted only a moment, but Elias saw it. Someone had taught her to fear nighttime sounds. That was a new curiosity trigger. Who had driven her so far that silence itself felt dangerous? He didn't press her. Instead, he stepped back into the cool night. "Rest while you can," he said. "Tomorrow's a long day." As he walked away, Mara sat on the bed, blanket clutched tight. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, her eyes closed without tears. Neither of them realized that her presence would soon force Elias to face a part of his own past he'd been avoiding for years. Morning came sooner than either of them expected. The sky was washed in pale silver, the kind of light that made the land feel honest, too honest for secrets to stay hidden. Elias walked toward the bunkhouse with slow, measured steps. He wasn't checking on her, he told himself, just making sure she was ready for the day's work. But when she opened the door, he saw it immediately. She hadn't slept well. Her hair was tied back neatly, her posture composed. But her eyes, they carried the weight of someone who had dreamed things she wished she hadn't. "Breakfast's in the kitchen," Elias said. "If you're hungry." Her smile was small but real. "I'm always hungry." They walked to the house together, boots crunching over frost-dusted grass. The air smelled of sage and cold earth. Inside, the kitchen was simple, iron stove, chipped enamel plates, coffee pot older than both of them combined. Mara paused, just for a second, taking it all in as if memorizing what safety looked like. Then it happened, An expression flashed across her face, quick and unguarded. Grief. Heavy, sharp, undeniable. She hid it almost instantly, but Elias saw it. And this time he asked, "Mara, who are you running from?" Her fingers tightened around the cup he handed her. The steam fogged the air between them. For a few moments, she didn't answer. He didn't push. Finally, she spoke. "I wasn't running from someone," she said softly. "I was running from nowhere." That made him pause. She set the cup down slowly, eyes fixed on the wooden table. "My parents died last winter. Fever took them both. The farm went with them. The bank didn't care. Neighbors offered scraps of help, but I didn't belong there anymore. I kept waking up to a house with no voices left in it." Her voice didn't break, but something inside it did. "I thought if I walked far enough, maybe I'd find a place that didn't remind me of everything I'd lost." The room fell quiet except for the gentle tick of the stove expanding with heat. That was the moment Elias felt the truth settle between them. She wasn't a burden. She wasn't trouble. She was a woman trying to start over in a world that rarely gave second chances. Curiosity triggered again, not about her past now, but her future. What would she build here if she trusted herself enough to stay? Elias cleared his throat. "You can work here as long as you need," he said. "No questions. No strings." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, her expression held hope. The days that followed unfolded like slow-turning pages, quiet, steady, full of things neither of them spoke aloud. Mara learned the rhythm of the ranch, the creak of corral gates at dawn, the comfort of stew simmering on the stove at dusk, the way nights here didn't feel like threats but invitations to breathe. And Elias, he changed too. Not in dramatic ways. He was still the same steady-handed, quiet-souled man. But something in him started to lift, as if a presence gave him permission to hope again. One evening, the sky turned the color of burnished copper, and the land glowed as though lit from within. The wind was gentle, carrying the clean scent of sage. Mara was closing the barn doors when Elias approached, hands tucked into his pockets. "You're settling in," he said. She nodded. "Feels strange, having a place where no one expects me to disappear." He leaned against the doorframe beside her. "You don't have to disappear here." The words hung in the air, simple, steady, dangerous in their truth. Mara looked out across the fields, the light catching the soft curve of her face. "I'm not used to staying anywhere." "Then maybe it's time you tried," he answered. There was no dramatic swell of music, no sudden confession, no lightning strike romance. Just two people standing in the fading light, finally understanding that they had stopped running, from grief, from silence, from empty rooms and long roads. A new curiosity rose, gentler than the ones before. What would happen if two wounded souls stopped surviving separately and chose to build something together? Mara breathed in slowly. "Elias, I don't know where my life is heading anymore." He looked at her with a calm certainty that came from years of weathering storms. "Then start here," he said. "Start small. Let the land teach you the rest." For the first time since she'd arrived, her smile reached her eyes. The camera would pull back then, wide shut, evening skies spreading out like a promise. Two figures standing at the edge of the barn, not touching, not rushing, just quietly sharing the kind of moment that changes everything. The ranch was no longer just his, and her future was no longer just a question. Some stories don't begin with love. They begin with survival and grow into something stronger.